Oh, how I love her so madly. Okay.
I can go bum bum. But you can turn around from the.
You wanna
We're
stand?
filming.
You
We're
wanna
filming.
stand on here?
No, we're filming. We're on here.
I like your fingernail polish.
Thank you.
You ran out of the first con, or you ran out of the second con?
It was a mix. I think.
I believe you.
I ran out the first round with one hand and the second round.
Whoa.
Hurt yourself.
You got a seatbelt, babe? Come on.
No, you don't want a fucking seatbelt.
It's cool.
No, come run.
Come check on me. If I don't scream soon, come check on me. Don't leave me in here too long, all right? We in New Orleans, man. We're down by the river.
Down by the river.
Oh, yes.
In the heat.
We're at Leslie Smith's house down here.
Yeah.
And I've been here since the early 70s. I remember one time we had a party here, and it was for Professor Longhair's Crawfish Fiesta had just been recorded, and we had a party here. You know, I heard all kind of music just up and down the street because there was no air conditioning, so everybody's windows were open. And so, you know, and everybody, not everybody, but at least for sure in my neighborhood in Mid-City around Carlton and Canal, you know, pretty much that neighborhood was ethnically mixed, and that the parents were usually from other countries and their kids were born here.
Yeah.
You know? Like my mom was born here, but her parents were from Sicily,
Ah, okay.
you know?
You got the Italian blood.
Well, that's who I grew up with, yeah. I didn't really grow up on my father's side of the family. You know? Strictly I was really the first mixed breed, you know, in the family.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
in my mother's family. So anyway, you know, you know, so getting back to the music and what things look like, and of course parades are a big part of the culture, and you know, what attractive things, you know, and so I, you know, in addition to listening to being exposed to different people's music because of the authenticity, I think is the right word, and you know, playing with kids who were not only into, you know, what their folks brought to them, but what, you know, what was coming across the AM radio.
Yeah.
You know, like whether it be the Platters, Nat King Cole, or Elvis Presley, or Chuck Berry, or you know, I mean, you know, Sam Cooke,
Yeah.
you know, growing up, you know, on that palette of music, you know, I think was pretty cool because you didn't really pick, oh, I like this and I like that, because I mean it was just, you either turn the dial, you know, so you kind of learn to like everything, you know, or either I think what happens is the question of like or dislike doesn't come into play, which I think is really the hippest thing that needs to be relearned and instilled in people as well as musicians. Don't pick and choose, you know? If you play music, you should play music, you know? So anyway, so I think I really learned to you know, to have a palate at an early age. So that was some of the things I learned in those years, in those informative years. Parades, parades are a whole nother subject. Of course, parades were like magnets. You know, they literally created the physics of pulses and rhythms and things like that you were attracted to. I was in Mid-City. There were several parades that started in Mid-City. That means at 10:30 in the morning, if it was a daytime parade, at 10:30, 11 o'clock, 10:30 in the morning, they started to gather to organize the parade to take off. So that meant, you know, all of these bands, high school bands, you know, lots of them, they'd start assembling at 10 o'clock. So, man, they would start beating on drums just, in the street, waiting, for hours to, horns, drums, man, were attractive. So immediately physically I was attracted to that. Growing up in the neighborhood, I could hear the bass drum start. As well as the church bell ring, I could hear the bass drum hit. Yeah, and I say, and usually my grandmother would make my uncle take me down there, and my uncle would walk me down there to the back of the parade, where because we would live close to the back of the parade, and where it started, and so my uncle would, and then pretty soon, I got old enough to go down there on my bike, so that was. Ride my bike 5 or 6 blocks down the street and go sit on a curb and listen to the drummers and listen to everything and of course be very attracted to the pulse of the drums.
So you took your roller skates then and you skated
Yeah.
down there.
Yep.
I heard a room that you were pretty
Yep.
adept to roller skater at some point.
I was in roller skating until I was 12. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Very heavy.
kinda
Very
took that
heavy.
place.
Yeah. Competitive. Lots of hard work. And then after 12 years old, when I discovered girls and and music and cigarettes, that was the end of roller skating. It was music, drums, girls, cigarettes. Anyway,
How did you get your first drums then?
I begged my mom, and my mom said, well, if you want a drum set, she would buy me a used drum set because she was a single mother living with my grandparents, and she worked as a bookkeeper, so she didn't have much money. She could pay a few bucks a week, and she said if you take lessons, and the lessons were about $2.50, for a lesson a week at that time. That would have been 61 maybe? Not 61. Yeah, 61. No. Yeah, 61, I'm sorry. Lots of decades, bro. I'll be 73 in a month. That was the deal. So I started studying drums with a guy named Charlie Sewell, who was the best teacher in the world. And my mom got me this very small drum set. And within a year, I was playing in like a kid band that played traditional music that an old man named Warren Duncan taught all the kids. And he had a junkyard. And in his junkyard, they had a shed with a piano. And every Saturday, kids would go there, and he would teach us all these traditional songs like Chica Araby, Saints Go Marching In, Way Down Yonder in New Orleans, and all of these things like that, and all the songs from that are indigenous of this area, and so then I got to go out and play in hospitals and benefits and with these kids band playing traditional music, and so I had a strong foundation in traditional music, while at the same time, of course, I was hanging out with my friends, my buddies, and we would listen to AM radio, learning rock and roll and stuff like that, And in the meantime, my drum teacher was, opening my ears to everything, Pick a record you want to learn this week, and then I'll give you a record to learn this week. And by record, I mean a little record, This is back in the day, This is back in the day of little records, 45s, and he had some 10-inch. Old records with Charlie Parker and Shadow Wilson and Dizzy Gillespie, and I didn't know who those people were, but I was just a little kid, and he said, play this, learn how to play, and I'm like, okay. And it wasn't until, years later that I realized he had me playing with Charlie Parker records, and Shadow Wilson was the drummer, or Max Roach. I didn't know that then. And he would just give me the chart, just the rhythm of the chart. He wouldn't give me the whole song. And he said, then you improvise. So he was very cool about that. I said, hey,
Wouldn't it be crazy to think back then that you would back up Dizzy Gillespie at one point? 'Cause isn't it?
that's right. You see, You see how all things are connected.
Yeah.
Everything is connected. That's exactly right. Because yes, I did play with Dizzy twice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So back then, if you're taking us back then, when is the first kind of paying gigs starting to happen? And
Well,
is that immediately? Kind of
no. I played a lot of charities, a lot of hospitals, a lot in the veterans hospital, which is like soldiers, you know. A lot of that very regularly, you know, at least once a month. Lighthouse for the Blind, Home for the Incurables, stuff like that. And that went down for a good year. Then all of a sudden, you would get a little $5 gig, you know. And as I got better, I got put into bands that the old man, Mr. Warren Duncan, he made to send out. I got put into better bands with older players who were better, and those gigs sometimes paid $5, as much as maybe $10 was a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. That was a lot. That was a lot for a 13-year-old kid to make. I went to a St. Aloysius, which was a private school, a private Catholic school, but I got a great scholarship for playing music, which was the only music scholarship that school ever gave out. They only gave out basketball scholarships. But the music teacher there really wanted me, and he hooked up with the teacher that was teaching me, and this guy, the band director from the high school, and my drum teacher coincidentally taught at the same music store where I was taking my one lesson a week, and they talked to each other, and we said, man, and, the other teacher said from the high school says, I have a drummer graduating, but I have this award-winning band. It's a jazz band, and a big band, and I need a new drummer, because I want to keep it, at a high. I want to keep entering these award-winning things. So my teacher said, try out this little kid. He's kind of young. Try him out. But so. He told me, my mom said, forget about it. Can't send you to the school. No way I have any kind of money to send you to school. Forget about it. I said, all right. So, I said, hey, Mom, at least let me go to the audition. She says, no, because, I can't send you to the school. We don't have that kind of money. It's impossible. You got to go to public school. I said, so finally I just, begged her, and Mom, I don't want to go to the school. I just want to go to the audition. That's all. And so finally, after me nagging my mom, she took me to the audition early in the morning before my regular public school, I played the audition. Smiled, everybody smiled. It was in the gymnasium with the big band, played Love for Sale, Cole Porter song, big band music, like Henry Mancini, Woody Herman, Basie, stuff like that. Played something else that was swinging, and that night my mom gets a call, yeah, why don't you kid, blah, blah, blah. My mom says, sorry, I can't go, no money. She says, oh, too bad, boom. Phone. Guy calls back later, says, hey, I got him a 4-year full scholarship. Boom. So that's how, answer your question, that's how I got in another school. And at the same time, my mom married not the same time, but very close, my mom married my step-pop. And so they had a little apartment for starters that was sort of in between my grandmother's house where I grew up and lived in, and school. So I would spend a few days with them. They were newlyweds, so I was hip, I wanted to get out their hair. So I said, man, let me go hang out at my grandma's, because all my friends are there too. See, I still have my boys in the neighborhood, I still have my neighborhood buddies, yeah, by my grandma's house, a whole different set of people, You know, they didn't go to Catholic school, you know. You know, but I did, and that was cool because I played drums, and they loved me for that. My friends were totally cool with everything, you know. So that's how, the high school thing happened, and it was all great in high school because one thing connected to the next and the next and the next and the next. And, then came Joe Abad, a second high school band director who really turned my head around and made me listen to Max Roach and Philly Joe Jones and come in the band room every day. Got me I got myself out of gym class, but after being thrown out 3 times, he said, Vidacovich, just go to the band room, get out of here, and because I wouldn't wear athletic supporter, I wouldn't wear a jockstrap, and so every day I'd go running out on the basketball floor, which you wasn't supposed to run out on without tennis shoes, and I would go running out with these big Italian-looking leather shoes, and my boxer shorts would be hanging out the bottom of my gym shorts, and he'd go, Vidacovich, go to the band room, get out of here. I'll give you a B just to stay away. So I would go to the band room, and Joe Abad, a band director, he played string bass, and he says, you got to get your time together, man. You got to get your time. Get a snare drum, get a sock cymbal, and get a pair of brushes. And he sat there with the bass, and he put the bass right there, man, and by dum dum ding dum 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 dum, so sakadum 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 sakadum, and he played different tempos, and then he played in 2, boom 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 boom. And anybody say, you're slowing down, you're speeding up, you're slowing down, you're speeding up, get on top of it, and boy, he really worked me hard, man. And he took me to his house to make me listen to music. He came to my house and set up this stereo equipment. I saved my money from playing those little $10, $15, $20 gigs and all of that, And by that time, I was playing in rock bands with my buddies, and we were making a little more, $18, $20, $25. Whoa, a lot of money, man. For like a 14, 15-year-old kid, And so that's how those things grew up, One thing leads you to the next. And, the older guy, I always listen to my older friends, And that kind of, growing up was like that for me. Mixed music, trad music, playing in a school band involved everything from marching band to concert band. You had a lot of classical pieces for band, and then we had jazz band, which was like, that's in those years, early 60s, we were playing Buddy Rich charts, we were playing a Basie, like I said, Ellington, Henry Mancini, Stan Kenton charts, Maynard Ferguson charts, we were playing Woody Herman charts. We were playing, and I mean charts, handwritten shit. I don't, excuse my French, handwritten stuff. Wasn't computer. You didn't buy it from a computer, man. Somebody had to, usually the band director or another friend of his had say, look what I took off the record, And you had to sit there with his ear with a record, man, and get every part off, 5 saxes, 4 bones, 5 trumpets, piano, bass, and drums. A record, a pencil, and a paper. Dig it? Record, pencil, paper. Really, because there were things happening everywhere that made decisions for me. Like these guys hooking up, the 2 teachers hooking up, everything. Like you said, the Dizzy Gillespie, and everything's tied up, right? Yeah. So the next thing I didn't have to think about was, what am I going to do after high school, or what am I going to be when I grow up,
That's what I mean. The path.
What am I going to be when I grow up,
Yeah.
In the meantime, I had fantastic scores in algebra, and I had a scholarship to go to college for algebra. But they were also phasing out algebra at the time, so I found out later. But anyway, that's not important because it didn't go that way. Anyway, so didn't have to make any decisions other than it's 1967, and could join the armed services, go to Vietnam. You know, was the thing to do. That was the thing you were supposed to do if you didn't go to college. So I said, well, you know, I better, you know, probably try to go to college. Because I didn't really feel like military material. I'm not very, you don't really look like a soldier type. Here's a simple question, you know. Would you issue me an automatic weapon to defend you?
Yes, I would.
No, you wouldn't. No, you would. Nobody would do that. Nobody would say, "Hey, look at that guy. Yeah, let's issue him a weapon." No. Oh, boom! I'd probably shoot off, you know, my own foot, or either somebody else's ass. Excuse my French. No. So, answer your question. I went to college. You know, got some scholarships to play music, and you know, it was a classical college. It was there weren't no jazz schools at the time. I know other kind of music schools. You know, it was a regular, and I majored in percussion, so I had to study mallets. You know, and they also at that school had a great jazz band, big band, and the music had become more years passed by, so the music was getting more sophisticated and crazy and good. The players were all college level good guys now, so you know I was in good company, man. You know, everybody was older than me. Everybody could really play, so I got hooked up with gigs, right? You know, different kind of gig, funk gig, society gig, cocktail gig, jazzy gig, you know, show gig, but wear a bow and tie, bro, and we're gonna read these charts and we're gonna make some money. Okay, you know. So, you know, and it goes on and on, you know, and out of college, then I worked. Traveled around a little bit, you know, not much, but went out to Las Vegas a couple times and worked out there.
Yeah, because you had a plan going to Los Angeles.
Yeah, I was on. Yeah, when I first quit school to go to Las Vegas, it was in order because I'd be closer to Los Angeles, and I thought that might be a future to live in Los Angeles and be a studio musician. That I wanted to study with Shelly Manne and be a studio musician. You know, that was the first time I ever had some sort of kind of idea of a plan. You know, but I only got as far as Las Vegas, and it was either come home and hurry up and get in school, or you get drafted and go to Vietnam, or it was do that, you know. So you know, the guy I was working for, you know, he couldn't get me out of the draft in Las Vegas. So I came home. Then finally, about a half a year later, I was you know, got out of the draft, went out, I got finished with the Army and all of that kind of stuff. Didn't do it, wasn't accepted, and blah blah blah. So that's another long story, but never mind. And went out to Las Vegas the second time and stayed 6 months and planned to go to Los Angeles, but I got a phone call from New Orleans. I didn't want to come back, but he called me twice and raised the money, and it got better, so I came back. And it was to play at the Playboy Club 6 nights a week. You played with a jazz quartet, you played shows, you played behind a comic, you know, lot of playing, you know, older guys, really good jazz players, and it was a quartet. No circuit. No, I stayed in New Orleans.
No, but the other artists would come through.
Yeah, yes. Every 2 weeks, a different singer. Every 2 weeks, a different comic, and some were instrumentalists, some were. It was all kind of music.
Learning a lot lot of music.
everything from backing up a Turkish belly dancer, reading music, reading, stacks of music at that tempo, and Turkish music. Oh, it was crazy, man. And of course, playing behind some really hip people that, Molina Shaw and some other kind of like Della Reese and people like that who were kind of stars, and they came out of that circus. And then I met a lot of comedians who turned out to be my best friends. Several of them were managed by Lenny Bruce's mother, and I became friends with some best friends of my life with some comedians. Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, because they were there for 2 weeks by themselves, staying in this funky hotel downtown around the corner from the Playboy Club. And, say, come on over to my house. We eat on a day off, let's hang out, Hey, let me introduce you to Mary. Let me introduce you to Susie, Do the best I could. Guys were on the road. And so, I worked at Playboy Club, and then I did that for 5 years, and it was great, man. And then I was about 25 years old, and I broke away from it just to change a little bit, and I did change, and then the music started at Lou and Charlie's. I met Alvin Baptiste. I knew Alvin Baptiste already, but I started hanging with Alvin Baptiste, and guys from all over were starting to go to this place. And then I started to meet a whole bunch of different and play with a whole bunch of different people that I had known. But now they were mixing and playing, and they play more avant-garde music, more contemporary, more experimental. The bebop had got more chancy and punked. That's when I realized, you can play bebop, but there's a way to make it sound punk, But you really have to know how to play bebop to do it. Because it's the attitude. It's not so much. The sound's going to be different, if you play punk jazz, what I call it, punk bop, which is the thing I like to think about, coming from where I come from, some cats would call it funk bop. If you just take a Thelonious Monk tune and you put a funk beat to it. But then on top of that, if you put even a more attitude to it, or maybe, bass players like James Singleton, and, has some weird stuff, yeah. So, all right, yeah, I can go there, it's boom ching anyway I do it. Just drums, got no notes.
Were you playing at the Maple Leaf then? Had that opened back then, the Maple Leaf?
I started playing at the Maple Leaf probably when I was 25 years old at that time, because I started getting...
How old is that? How old is the Maple Leaf?
Well, it was old when I got there, and I was 25, so that was 1974. But I had played there with lots and lots of other bands through the decades, going back to the mid-'70s, I think, mid-'70s.
I heard, I think it was John Cleary talk about this, that back in the 80s and stuff, that the Maple Leaf was a combination, and you have to correct me if I'm wrong with that, it was a combination of a laundromat, a gun shop at one point, and a bar. And then you had James Booker, which we're going to talk about later. James Booker staying on the top floor, and I think he said that at the time Maple Leaf wasn't kind of the hip music place. There's a place across the street that was kind of more hipper looking out.
Yeah, that was Jed's. Yeah. And Jed's had more of a musical program, and he had a bigger club, and it was more expensive, and but Maple Leaf is just a funky club, and it still is. That's the charm. That's probably what Cleary's talking about, Jeds. Yeah, I played down at Jeds with Professor Longhair, but I also played the Maple Leaf with Professor Longhair. Yeah, I guess it might have been 76 with Professor Longhair, maybe. If not 76, I don't know.
At some point, you got the call to play with the great Professor Longhair. Can you tell about how you got that gig and how do you start playing with
The regular drummer was from Canada, and he was having a visa problem, and I had already sat in with Professor Longhair's band, a half a dozen or a dozen times because he never, prior to this band, the bands he had before that were not the same bands. They were not. He would get a band together when he had a gig, so it'd be different people. So, and there were times when he would hire this one guy who didn't show up, So a lot of times I get this quick phone call because I knew the bass player, Julius Farmer. It was call Johnny Vidacovich, and now we'll go over there, boom, play the gig, and Fest would, be all right, and then, 6 months would pass, and Professor Longhair would have a gig, and a drummer didn't show up or they couldn't find it. Drummer said, call Johnny Vidacovich, boom, boom, boom. So that went down for years. There was no will you join the band thing, because there was no band to join. It's like, hey, what you doing on Friday the 16th? Hey, what you doing Thursday? And one cat say, I decided I can't make it, at the last minute, I'll just not show up. That was quite common, the not show up thing. And when a drummer not show up, boy, So anyway, how I got the thing was Fest was ready to go on the road. The guy from that he finally got a steady band together, and he got a steady drummer, and they've been playing together, and now they got this big gig to go on the East Coast tour all the way up to Canada and through New York and up in here and all over the United States. And the drummer from Canada said, "Sorry, I got to quit. I got to go back to Canada because my the immigration says get out." So anyway, and stay out. And so, oh yeah, so it's time for Fest and them to go on a tour, the drummer had to split, so they said, "Hey Johnny, you want to go on this tour?" I said, "Yeah, man." I said, "When is it?" And they said, "Day after tomorrow." So I mean, this band had been together playing a while, so they had arrangements. They had a pretty much, but I went on tour cold. No rehearsals. Not here. Listen to this tape. This is how we're gonna. Even though I knew, 90% of the songs, I didn't know what these arrangements were with the three horns. I had never done it. The gigs that I played with Fest were maybe one or two horns that were just making stuff up, guitar, bass, drums, and congas, and it was go for it, Anyway, so I went on the tour. We came back from the tour, we cut the record, and we had gigs. We were doing some more traveling. We went and played some festivals around, they were fun, they were great, yeah.
So the record you're talking about is Crawfish Fiesta.
Yeah, the day it came out, it won the W.C. Handy Award in England, Blues Award in the United Kingdom, and which I understand is a very prestigious award. And anyway, the day it came out, it won that award, but he also died.
Yeah. But if we go back to that recording, can you take us back to those sessions? Was that like a one session kind of a thing? Was that a couple of sessions? Were you guys all in the same room? Was there like, can you take us back to that?
It's pretty much all at the same time. In the same room, drums are, behind some plexiglass in a booth controlled. I would say 2 nights of recording, maybe. 3rd night of a little bit more this and that, clean up kind of thing, maybe. If I can remember right, that's so long ago. It could have been 4 nights. I could have hung out there 4 nights, but I might have been finished on the 2nd night, So, I would say roughly it just recalls to me to be like a 2.5 or 3 nighter, piece of cake, work a little hard the 1st night, make sure you do stuff right the 2nd night, and the 3rd night just so
And was that the songs that you've been playing on that tour, kind of a thing that we
Yes.
laying down?
Yes.
And just Fest is just calling the tune and then you're playing it, or what is it?
Yeah.
Who's
Let's
the
see.
producer?
We had. Oh, wait, hold on, Jack. I forgot. Oh my God. Here we go. Listen, I'm sorry. I call you Jack. No. Alligator Records from Chicago. The producer Bruce. What's his last name? Not Epstein. I can't remember his last name. But his last name. But and it's on a record. He came down and we rehearsed the charts that we've been playing on the road. So that was kind of for his benefit. And he wanted to say, maybe we should end here. Blah 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 blah. So how many chords? That was a good idea too. Like to make sure we knew how many choruses of a solo were going to happen. So when we went in the studio, we just pretty much knocked it out. So yeah, that's how. But when we got in the studio, Fess pretty much said what he felt like playing. He would take suggestions, from either Alan Toussaint didn't say much. He came around and smiled a lot, and it was really gleaming. And the engineer was my good buddy Skip Goodwin, I think. Yeah. And Bruce was the only out of town, so to speak, so it was fun, man. And Mac was playing guitar, he was hilarious, And I'd be playing in the drum booth with the headphones on, and that like that's the piano, and then I can see it through the and right in front of the piano, with his back and his head up in the piano, his headphones on. He's playing guitar and he's leaning back in this, folding chair, and he's leaning back, and I see his finger, boom, say the song, boom, ding, 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 boom, boom, and I'm like here, but what he's doing is he's ghosting all these other notes. He's not playing them. He like only would play about 30% of what he was actually fingering. It was crazy. And I'm hearing in my head, I'm checking a wire, thinking my wire's short now because I'm not hearing all the notes he's playing. Then I realized he ain't playing them notes.
Fill the space.
Yeah. Deep spaces. Excuse me. Deep spaces. So that, there was lots of good stuff to remember about that session. It was fun. It was challenging. You put Professor Longhair inside of perimeters and still maintain that effervescence, because he had a way of hovering. He had a way of hovering the music or hovering the beat, slight altitude. He had a way of doing that, and I was wondering, I don't know if they can capture this kind of stuff on a record, bro. Because this could be just me. No, he had a way of doing that. He had a way of playing he was a dancer. He played like a dancer. He played like a drummer dancer. That's the way he played the piano. He was the best of all. Booker was a very great pianist. Imaginative, improvisational, and he could graph it out. He could pin it down. He could loosen it up. It could fall apart. Booker could play like Chopin. Yeah, he was very pianistic. Fess was very rhythmical and percussive.
Is that what General Morton called like the Spanish tinge? Did he come from like the?
That's a
rumba?
beautiful word. I would use that word. Spanish tinge. I love it. Yeah, because to me the Spanish tinge around here involves a little New Orleans kind of Spanish. Mardi Gras, that's got a real Spanish tinge on the drum beat. The song, you could put any kind of beat to it. It would be, down in New Orleans where the blues was born. It takes a cool cat to blow a horn. And you can play any kind of beat to the song. But with this beat, how many drums, in it, it go boom, it's not going boom, it's not that. It's not ticky, 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 ticky. It's it's that swinging, It's that swaggy swinging kind of Spanish tinge rumba kind of thing, Yeah, but I'll tell you what's going on inside of me.
Yeah. Please do.
I mean, it's easier for me to make them even like that because my arm will go automatic in that position. But also when I play that beat, if I play more of a German grip, I'll play this, which will include the accents. For example, if it says this accent. But if I turn my hand over and play more of this kind of French kind of thing, you see. Yeah, I mean, I'll try to make them even if I hit the shell, but in all reality, it's the same thing as me going tall and tan and young and that's tall and tan and young and lovely, the girl from. That's what my right hand is playing. It's playing the same thing that my left hand is playing. They're playing in unison. But I'm playing a continuous beat with my right hand.
That's what I'm saying.
So it says. And for me, that's everything. You know, that's the difference between machines, and that's the difference between drummers, and that's the difference between drummers and musicians.
Yeah.
A drummer who's a musician, he's going to have more inflection in that lead, linear, what I call the melody of the rhythm. And that would be in my right hand. Tall and tan and young and lovely. So you see how the right hand this is the leader for me, the melody. If you were looking at Bach 4 parts, it would be melody, soprano, tenor, bass. Melody, soprano, tenor, bass. But these three are intertwined. They can the counterpoint can be ridiculous. Intertwined. They can shift voices. But if I have that melody in the time happening with my right hand, if I have the melody in the time, man, I feel musically into whatever's happening. Because I'm phrasing with the linear melodic rhythm of the music. And that makes that goes from playing drums to playing music. That's the breaking point. That's the octave key. That nasty ass octave key on a clarinet. You hip to that? You hip to the octave key on a clarinet?
No.
Talk to clarinet players about the octave key. It's the hardest. All their lives they'll spend. I know a guy, man, got a master's degree when he was 22. He's up there at 60 going, oh. And I played another clarinet player, Ray Moore. You know, he ain't a clarinet. He plays tenor, alto, flute, bass clarinet, But when he picks up the clarinet, he says, torture stick. Hates it. He hates it. And he can play everything great. But boy, that sucker get to squeaking. Woo, woo. Clarinet players, I love them. Booker. Look a Booker. That's what I just tell him all the time. Look a Booker.
When is the first time you met him?
God have mercy. Lou and Charlie's, maybe. Got to be Lou and Charlie's, yeah. Early 70s, early mid 70s. Lou and Charlie's. And I started playing, you know, we were friends, we talked and all of that. And I started playing on Tuesday nights with him and Alfred Roberts, Uganda, who plays conga on Fiesta stuff. and I met Booker at Lou and Charlie's, and we started playing on Tuesday nights with Alfred, and I remember what my pay was. My pay was a cheeseburger and all the draft beer I could drink. But I liked Booker so much and never had anything to do on a Tuesday night. And I had finished working at the Playboy Club and I was no longer rich anymore. Not that I ever was, but I was pretty broke. Anyway, so, I mean, no, I truly loved playing with Booker and hanging out at Lou and Charlie's because that's where everybody hung out. All the musicians, I would be hanging out there anyway. So I figured I might as well go there, you know, and, you know, and usually he's, you know, Charlie at the end of the night would slide me some money too, if I didn't drink too much, you know, yeah. If I didn't drink too much, he'd slide me some money.
Yeah.
Then I'd immediately turn around and spend it on tequila. You know, I was a bad boy, but not anymore.
Yeah.
Nobody else. I mean, people imitate him, but, you know, I've been sitting behind him. You know, I mean, people imitate him very well, and they do him justice, and I really appreciate it. And a lot of people, they, you know, spend their lots of time getting that together. But anyway, what about Booker? What about Booker? Whoa. Dr. John has some famous choice words about him. But I just say that he's probably, you know, I don't think there's any other piano player that can play like him or plays like him or is like him or could consume that persona, everything about him, if you knew him. He was, you know, probably like the Chopin of that particular whatever group you want to put him in, because he's in a very different group. You know, he's not a normal person. Was not a normal person. He was just, you know, he was above the norm. You know, you know, he's like you know, in a class with I don't know, class. No, he's in a class of his own. You know, but I mean, it's to me, you know, because I play with a lot of piano players, a million, you know, and none of them play like Booker. You know, he was flexible, he was solid, he was lyrical, he was melodic, he was soulful, deep, deep, deep. He could really rip out the insides of your soul. He was deep, 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 you know. So what made Booker Booker was he was only just one of a kind. Can't be compared with. I mean, you know, can't be comparable. Yeah, he was. Dr. John sums it up. I just don't want to say those words.
Yeah, I know it. I can say it. It was a one. It was a. You have to. I think I got it. It's a one-eyed gay genius.
Junkie.
Black man junkie.
Piano player.
Piano player.
That's it. You got it. You got it.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know, I mean, he and I are good friends. We hung out together, you know. I drove him home lots of times, drove him in circles lots of times. Yeah, he never was quite clear where he was sleeping. Take a left. Pull over here. Okay, see you, Booker. No, this is not where I live. I just wanted you to pull over. I want to talk to you about it. Go up here. Do me that all the time. So, where you going, Booker? Yeah. I'm going to my auntie's house. Okay. He was cool. We had fun. We had fun. We made a great record. That was another 3 or 4 day venture, 3-day venture. Where I think only the second day was the day that. Although I thought there were good takes on the first and the second day, I think they basically used the second day. I think the first day might have been a wash, and I think the third day he played a lot of solos. Yeah.
Playing with him, either live or in the studio, would it be kind of like Booker plays what he wants, everybody else got to follow him? Was that the
Absolutely.
Was that the kind of
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it was no problem. I mean, I had I had been initiated to that process many years in the early parts of my life, all through my life. So that was just another guy doing it with a different suit on, same process with a different suit, and that's just a matter of being totally empathetic, having no preconceived ideas, having ears like an elephant so you can make sure that what you're hearing is as much as possible, and then, maintain that sense of, awareness of what's going on, what he's doing, and what everybody else is doing, and maintain that sense of, so you can keep a check to see if you stand within, the perimeters of the music, without being staying within the tastefulness of the music. Yeah, that's right. Don't use the wrong colors. Don't use the wrong pepper or ingredients or whatever flavorings, be careful. Don't mess up the soup. Don't mess up the red gravy, as my grandmother would say. Don't mess up the red gravy, God. No, son of a bitch.
So Classified, was that Alan Toussaint?
That was recorded at Ultrasonic.
Okay.
Yeah, Scott Billington was the producer. Sweetest guy you ever want to meet in your life. He produced the Alvin Red Tyler records. He produced the Alvin Red Tyler records. He produced lots of stuff. I've made many records for Scott Billington and Rounder Records. I made a record on Warner Brothers with Charlie Rich, with Scott Billington as the producer. Scott Billington finessed Becker. Scott Billington finessed Booker during the Classified sessions that no one else could have done a better job, I would think. And if it wouldn't have been for Scott Billington, there would be no Classified. I guarantee you that. My hat is off to Scott Billington. Bless your soul. Scotty. Yeah.
Did you work with like Wardell, Quezergue, and
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
And guys like that? Yeah.
Wardell, I think, did some of the Johnny Adams.
Yeah, you played with Johnny Adams.
The one, Good Morning Heartache, or a Heartache, whatever, Johnny Adams. It's sort of a big band in Johnny Adams. It's on Rounder, I think. Should be. It's Johnny Adams' record. Yeah, it's on Rounder. And so I think Wardell wrote the arrangements on that, and I think Wardell also wrote some of the arrangements on my favorite Johnny Adams record, Johnny Adams Sings Doc Pumice, The Real Me. That's on Rounder Records, and that's with Dr. John playing piano. Yeah. And boy, we play some old Miss Doc Pumice songs that are just heartbreaking, totally heartbreaking. My favorite is The Night is a Hunter. Yeah. Yeah. Let's have a break and come back and finish it up.
Yeah.
Good idea.